As Prince Harry and Meghan Markle's business empire continues to crumble under their own incompetence, we have a staggering level of hypocrisy from the two as they go to a 4th of July parade and stunningly bring their children after keeping them under lock and key. Apparently the only time of year that the Sussexes can potentially be seen as a family of 4 is for the 4th of July. The last time we saw at least Harry, Meghan, and Archie was actually at a 4th of July parade in 2022. Now we have Montecito and we see all 4 of them. Yet when I look at them, I can't help but think of the hypocrisy of this scene of a British prince celebrating the Independence Day, the day we wrote the Declaration of Independence, telling the British king at the time, King George III, that yeah, no, we don't want you anymore. Please go away now. And apparently Harry and Meghan don't have that message yet. And I think showing us their children is another desperate ploy for not only attention, but a way to deflect from this business empire that they've tried to create that is utterly crumbling around them over their own incompetence, talentlessness, and just simple laziness. It's really a crazy thing to see. So we are going to explore all of this today, and I'm going to tell you why Harry and Meghan are some of the biggest hypocrites in the whole world. But if you guys haven't been here to Royal News Network, my name is Brittany. I provide compelling royal commentary. I also have a newsletter, Royal Wire, a fashion channel covering royal fashion called Royal Fashion News. And then I also have an upcoming trip to Germany and Austria. So if you're interested in joining me on that, seeing some amazing castles and palaces from the Habsburgs, from the Bavarian princes, I would love to have you join me. I only have 2 weeks left on that trip. It officially closes on July 17th. So if you are interested in that, feel free to head down and check out the links down below. Everything is down there. And if you want to as well, go ahead and click that subscribe button and maybe even that notification bell. And before we go into talking about Harry and Meghan and their utter hypocrisy, because it is fascinating to see 2 people who just can't seem to see their own inconsistencies and logic. We do have Catherine and William showing us how it's done. Prince William did a charity polo game in Windsor. His wife, of course, was there in a gorgeous Beulah London dress to support him. It's actually something from previous season, but because Catherine has worn it, they're bringing it back. So if you want to order it, it'll be available by November. You can pre-order it now. I mean, look at that, we'll see. But yes, it looked so pretty on her. I really did love the color. And so I think it's fabulous that they're bringing it back. Beulah London, part of their proceeds goes to help women in trafficking situations. So it is a great business and / charity to support. So I think that's absolutely marvelous. And I really think they showed, as well as I put a picture of them in 2021 when they did basically the same event in 2022. So much has happened. We've had the Queen's death, Harry and Meghan's documentary, we've had them becoming the Prince and Princess of Wales, Harry's memoir, so many things going on. And yeah, I think they are stronger than ever. They are a strong unit and show that a good marriage is not based on this majestic love story that shatters the ages. It's built on friendship. It's built on a strong foundation of a loving relationship that's come from years of struggle and strife and really actually becoming partners, which I feel like Catherine and William are. Harry and Meghan, not so much, because obviously the 2 of them have so many struggles between the 2 of them, and hypocrisy is probably one of the biggest things there. But before we go into some of those details, just a couple really quick notes of clarification, because I know some people have said that these photos are photoshopped of Harry and Lily. No, they are not. You can clearly see that at least some of what people think is an alternative color on Harry's arm or a second arm is actually the arm of another human being. And that sometimes when it comes to taking pictures, you get either camera flares or you get somebody who's walking in partially to light and not. And so I think the sort of quote unquote different colors you see on Harry's shirt are the results of actual natural reactions to taking pictures, not because they are photoshopped. Why would you do Photoshop and do such a crummy job of it? That just doesn't really make a ton of sense. Obviously, people are saying as well, oh, that's not Harry. I'm like, of course, guys, that is Harry. I can't see how it would be anybody else. And also a couple people have mentioned how Lilibet looks like she's dressed too warmly for the day, because obviously it's in the middle of the July. It's like 90 degrees where I am. and just doesn't seem to get any cooler, and I'm miserable half the day. But actually, it was only 68 degrees as a high that day. That's pretty low. Apparently, the parade started about noon, so that could be a little bit before the heat of the day even, so it could have been even in the mid to low 60s. That's pretty cold for Californians, to be honest. In the vast majority of cases, apparently, when I mentioned this on Twitter, a lot of people had said it's been kind of a cold year there, about 10 degrees cooler than what they normally get. So in some instances, I would say, hey, yeah, Lilibet's perhaps dressed too warm. Honestly, though, I think she was just dressed for the weather. However, I will say, for Meghan Markle, who wanted to raise her kids in a modern way, she certainly is dressing her daughter a lot like Princess Charlotte, which you feel like is just another lame attempt to try to connect to the British monarchy and connect to Princess Charlotte, which you could exemplify as our first instance of hypocrisy here. Meghan Markle has told us time and time again how much she hates the British monarchy, except if it just did everything that she wanted them to do, then it was fine, but she hates it otherwise. And she said she wanted to dress her child in a more normal way. She wants her kids to be normal. Yet the outfit, I'm sorry, it just really does look like something Princess Charlotte would wear, or something that Catherine would put Charlotte in. Catherine has always been very cognizant of how her children look because she knows that the way her children are presented to the world is how they will be remembered for the ages. Catherine, you have to give her an enormous amount of credit. She wants to do the best job for her children, and when her children go up, look at the pictures of them taken in public and be happy and proud of them. Not going, oh my gosh, Mom, I looked terrible, I looked messy, I looked awful. No, Catherine, the children you could say almost look perfect. And that's not because Catherine expects her children to be perfect. I'm sure she can tell you exactly what their faults are. But what she wants to make sure they do is because their pictures will be taken for the ages and remembered for years and years to come, she wants to make sure they look well and that they are proud of their pictures. And I think that's a wonderful thing of Catherine to do. But Meghan, she doesn't really want to be a part of the royal establishment. She wants to forge her own path. More power to you, honey, whatever you want to do. But when it comes to this instance, she clearly is going for a British look. I actually went to a 4th of July party and I saw a lot of little girls and they were dressed in very, you could say, bold stars and stripes outfits. Very much, very, very patriotic. Now, granted, Lilibet is also a British citizen, but let's be frank, she's an American, guys. This girl has basically no connection to the British monarchy other than her dad, and her dad is adopting more of an American accent. And I have spent, I feel like, more time in the UK this year than Prince Harry has. I've been there about 3 weeks this year so far, between 3 separate trips. I'll go for a couple more days in September, and I think that's longer than Harry's been there, because when he goes, sometimes he goes there for like 24 hours, and I'm like, spend some time with your family, bud. Spend some time with your family. You don't know what might happen to your father, and you already missed your time with your grandmother, which I feel like you probably already regret, or you should if you don't already, missing out on this time with your grandmother. Because Harry could have been there the day before she died, but he decided not to go and visit her. Huge, huge regret. I think that will be pretty difficult for him. So that Meghan is going in that direction is just rather funny, considering the fact she wants to be this cool California mom. Yet, I will dress my kids like a British princess, because, I mean, she is a British princess, guys. If I believe it strongly enough and I see it, it is. And technically, it is true, but honestly, I don't call their kids a prince and princess because I think it's silly. That title should mean something. And them being in California, it makes the title look ridiculous because they have no connection to the UK. This is a problem Charles and William need to address, is that if you have people wandering around with a British title, they should at least have somewhat, especially one as high as a prince and princess, should have somewhat, you could say, responsibilities or maybe even connection to Great Britain, not to California and Montecito. They're not the Prince and Princess of Montecito. They're supposedly the Prince and Princess of Sussex, and yet they've never been to Sussex. So that just looks a little silly. And the other bit of hypocrisy here is that Harry said in an interview that he finds that the First Amendment of the Constitution is bonkers. So go ahead and take a listen here.
I got so much I want to say about the First Amendment. I still don't understand it, but it is bonkers.
Okay, Harry, just so you know, this country is founded on the principle of freedom. I know, difficult concept. Really, really difficult concept. That means that we should be able to share our thoughts, even including something like the earth is flat, or that there's no such thing as zebras, they're just horses with paint jobs, or any other inane, mostly harmless thought that you could have. You should be allowed to have it. It says basically we have the freedom of press, association, and religion. So that means you can go to any church you want. Just because people say bad things on Twitter does not mean that you should be able to restrict their rights, especially as a British prince. And then the hypocrisy of Harry, who doesn't understand the First Amendment of the Constitution, going to a 4th of July parade to exercise the rights and freedoms that were given to him because now he lives in the United States and is basically adopting an American persona. It just seems rather hypocritical of him to do so and seem to be celebrating the attendance. We do have a couple of royals who live here in the States. I know that the Greek royals spend a good chunk or some parts of their year here. And we also have Princess Madeline of Sweden. Now, while Harry and Meghan don't have a social media account, at the same time, I feel like they use the paparazzi as an extension of whatever their social media could be. So in this instance, they wanted to show us that they are a family at the 4th of July parade. However, Princess Madeline of Sweden, she lives in Florida. Do you know what we don't see her do? Is celebrating the 4th of July. Even though one of her children is an American citizen, she was born here, Princess Leonor. She does celebrate Swedish National Day. She's done a picture for that. Has she done a picture about the 4th of July? No. Does her family maybe go to a 4th of July parade? Sure. I mean, it's something to do. Everybody has a holiday this day. Might as well go. It's something for the kids to hang out and do. And perhaps they are all American citizens because their father is as well. But at the same time, she's not promoting the Independence Day, where I feel like in this instance, Harry and Meghan kind of are, because the only time we've seen them out in public with their family is at the 4th of July, which is just, again, weird for a British royal family. We've seen them at a 4th of July parade, but yet they missed the coronation of their grandfather, who basically imbued them with the titles they now use and abuse. It's just a little weird. Now, when it comes to Harry and Lilibet, when we get these more close-up pictures, he looks very pouty. He's like, you can see him thinking, how dare this person, whoever they are, take pictures of me and my daughter? How dare you, sir or ma'am? Well, I'm sorry, Harry. The hypocrisy here is that if you wanted privacy for your children, true privacy for your children, you would live in the United Kingdom. You wouldn't live here. We are under no obligation in the United States to blur your kids' pictures. That is not a law here. You'll notice that they do that on the Daily Mail, but that's partially because, at least in the United Kingdom, there are stipulations about if somebody, at least this is as far as I've seen it, if somebody shows their kids in public willingly, then you unblur their pictures. But if they're keeping their kids private for the most part, like Riley Cano, they blur out the kids' pictures. And that's because there's a lot of stipulations around pictures of children taken in public when it comes to Europe in particular. But when it comes to America, you can publish those pictures. There ain't nothing wrong with publishing those pictures as Page 6 did, unblurred and uncensored. And if Harry wanted for that to be done and for his family's private time to be recognized and honored, why, you would live in the United Kingdom. Yes, we do get pictures of Catherine and William on their private time with their children, but there's an agreement between the press and the palace. And this agreement basically is if the kids are out on official public engagement, you take their pictures, you can publish them, that's completely fine. Or if there's a private family picture that Catherine and William want to share, that's fine too. However, if there's pictures taken on their private time that are not authorized, the main publications do not publish them. They do not publish them. They get published on other sites, yes, in the United States and other places, but they don't get published by the main British press. And what this does is because Catherine and William release pictures of their children on their own and they've started to bring them to engagements, it decreases the interest of getting those private pictures of Catherine and William. And I believe, honestly, for the most part, most people respect that. Like, if I'm planning on going to Windsor Castle, am I going to be scaling the fences trying to grab pictures of the kids? Of course not. Why would I do that? Sometimes, though, you just happen to see somebody, like I happened to see Princess Eugenie and her son August and husband Jack on the grounds of Kensington Palace. They were in a public place, basically. They were watching a helicopter land. I just wanted to take a picture of the people over there because I had no clue who they were, and they just happened to be them. And I just thought that was kind of fun. It's kind of a cool, unique, exclusive picture that I managed to grab a couple days before she gave birth. But I'm not scaling the fence to find them. It was a low fence. You can just look over it and take pictures. Anyways, so, and they knew that could happen because there's a bunch of people that went over there when the helicopter went to land, because there was a royal helicopter that landed. That's why everybody was there. But we really don't know anything about August or their new son, Ernest. We just don't really know anything because there is this good relationship between the palace and the press. And that basically they try to leave these young minor children alone for the most part. We've gotten a couple of paparazzi pictures of Princess Beatrice and her daughter Sienna, but she has never released a public picture of Sienna. Although it's fun to see her, just to see the resemblance between her and her daughter and to see the resemblance with August and everything, you do understand that she wants to keep her kids private, and she really doesn't bring up Sienna that much in interviews and those sorts of things. And again, I think that's an important distinction as well. You can have your kids be private, but it's best if you don't talk about them, because once you start talking about them, then I feel like there's a relationship that needs to develop. Otherwise, we don't really care. And Harry and Meghan desperately, guys, need us to care about their children. If the public isn't invested in them, I think the titles are really on the line. And the other hypocritical thing about this, and I think something that's rather terrible in terms of Harry's relationship with his father, is that these pictures posted on July 5th. What also happened on July 5th was the service of Thanksgiving for King Charles at St. Giles's Cathedral in Edinburgh. This was the time where he received basically the Scottish crown jewels. It's not a second coronation, but he was sort of officially instituted as the King of Scotland in a more official ceremony. And he wore his robe, the Order of the Thistle. They had a fly past. This was a huge moment. Of course, Harry and Meghan always have to compete, because even though they want to stand on their own and they tell us that they are so powerful by themselves, they're obviously hypocrites because they desperately need the royal family to make them relevant, especially in this time where their business prospects are tanking. And so I think in this instance, Harry and Meghan do themselves no favors here by obviously trying to compete with Charles in this instance, and once again, it really does make them look like hypocrites. It's also rather hypocritical of Harry and Meghan to be seen out, I think, in a way, celebrating the 4th of July. Yes, it's something to do. Yes, I somewhat get it. But yet at the same time, they are celebrating an American holiday, one that represents the fact that we got rid of our British overlords, and yet the two of them demand that we call them the Duke and Duchess of Sussex, and that we call their kids Prince Archie and Princess Lilibet. I think that's ridiculous. It's just so grating that these two people who come to our country demand that everybody call them a Duke and Duchess, and that they must put Duke and Duchess in front of everything, as if we've forgotten they're the Duke and Duchess of Sussex. And yet at the same time, they want to go out and celebrate an American holiday of freedom. Well, which is it? Are you British trying to be royal in America, or are you Americans trying to be British royals? I'm just confused of where you are at here. Because if you are truly trying to make this American dream a reality, be an American. Do American things, go down the American path. Don't mention the royal family at all. Don't mention them at all. Don't even bring them up in any sort of conversation. Ignore them. Do your own thing. Go by Harry Windsor and Meghan Markle. Meghan can't be Meghan Windsor, but maybe she could be Meghan Sussex. Maybe go by Harry Sussex and Meghan Sussex. You could do that. But no, we have to call them the Duke and Duchess of Sussex. Heaven forbid somebody doesn't call her Meghan Markle the Duchess of Sussex or Meghan the Duchess of Sussex. She needs a title in front of her name to make herself relevant. And Harry is much the same, even though he has this distinction of being a prince. Now his children also have a distinction of being a prince and princess because of their grandfather. They also refuse to see their grandfather or any other family member. And so you're clearly distancing yourself from your British relatives, and yet you're celebrating an American holiday, clearly wanting to be somewhat American. Where are you? You need to pick a side here, because this really weird middle ground that Harry and Meghan have always tried to walk is just not working, because it dilutes their brand. I think it confuses their branding, because it's like, what do you stand for? What do you stand for? And you left the royal family. But I think the biggest hypocrisy we see here is that Harry and Meghan have made such a game out of seeing their children. They've shown the behind the head shot. They've shown just the feet. They've shown Archie's back. they really tried to hide Archie quite a bit. They showed more of their kids, obviously, in their own documentary series, but they played these games with seeing their children. They've tried to keep them as much hidden as possible, it seems like, and yet trotting them out when it benefits them, or just showing us this little peek, this little hint of their child. And what this has done, especially because in the lead up to Meghan's birth of Archie, she played a lot of games in terms of, I think, her bump. I think she sometimes patted her bump to look more pregnant or stuck her gut out to look more pregnant, because Meghan Markle is very much a narcissist. And because she is a narcissist, I think she was very much wanting to sell this look of hers as this beautiful pregnant woman. And we can all understand that to a certain extent. But I think Meghan probably took it too far. And then you also have the addition of the game she played in terms of who her doctor was, who her nurse was, all these sorts of things that resulted in something where people still to this day continue to advocate for, and I know a decent amount of you on here also believe this as well, is that Harry and Meghan used the services of a surrogate. And I understand why people somewhat believe that, but I will tell you right now that's probably almost completely impossible to pull off. The reason is that when it comes to surrogacy in the UK, you actually cannot pay a surrogate to do this in terms of having just a lump sum payment to do it. You can pay for their medical expenses, perhaps travel expenses, clothing, those sorts of things, but you cannot pay them an additional lump sum on top of that to carry your child for you. There's nothing as paid surrogacy in the UK, which means it's entirely voluntary, which means that there's a very limited scope of people to pull from. You have the fact that when a birth happens and a surrogate gives birth, that surrogate is the parent of the child. And the father can be whoever donated the sperm, but the parent, the mother of the child, is the woman who gave birth to that child. It's entirely possible that if Harry and Meghan used the surrogate, their surrogate could have given birth and then stopped and went, okay, so when are you going to give me more money? Or something like that. Not, obviously she couldn't technically do that, but she could stand around there and basically claim to be the mother of that child. And there's nothing in the legal system that Harry and Meghan could use to leverage the parental rights of their child, basically. It would be an incredibly complicated situation. And the same thing would be true if the woman gave birth in the UK. Even if they brought a surrogate, let's say, over from the United States, because that's where you can pay for surrogacy. They brought her to the United States, she gave birth, that woman would still be the mother of the child. So there's all sorts of technical issues why the surrogacy could not happen. However, the rumor has persisted, and that's because Harry and Meghan, in addition to, I think, manipulating how Meghan looked during her pregnancy, and I think that was Meghan's narcissism at play, is that they lied to people about when Meghan gave birth. And because of that, there's been all sorts of conspiracy theories wondering why. She didn't tell us her medical team. She didn't tell us where she gave birth for a long time. Stupid decisions that resulted in conclusions I'm sure Archie and Lily will resent at some point in their lives. And the sad thing is they only had their parents to blame. But what I think is the hypocrisy here is not that this rumor persists, but that Harry has contributed to this rumor surrounding to his children because Meghan Markle wanted to play games with the media, which will probably perpetuate the own hurt he experienced in his life over the James Hewitt allegations. Harry is repeating history, basically, because he allowed his wife to play games. The reason I think actually Meghan did give birth to both of her kids, and this is just a very simple observation, is that she gained a lot of weight and she really, really struggled to lose it. She was still overweight from her initial weight, which was quite tiny, for a good 6 months. And if we can all agree that Meghan Markle is a narcissist, there's no way a narcissist like Meghan Markle would be happy being as overweight as she was, as long as she was after her pregnancies. When she went to Wimbledon with Catherine and Pippa, I was shocked at how big she looked. I don't think the outfit helped matters at all. I think it emphasized it. But she looked really, really big. So that was just 2 months after she had given birth to Archie, so not too long. But when you look at how quickly Catherine bounced back, I'm sure that really grated on Meghan. And Meghan, obviously, she was an older woman when she had kids, so So I think she just really struggled to lose the weight. And I'm sure sitting next to very skinny Catherine, who's had 3 children, and Pippa at that point, who had probably had at least 2 of her children, now has a 3rd and still has a washboard flat stomach. Those girls have amazing genetics, and I think they're both just very active and work out quite a lot. Is I'm sure Meghan was just incredibly envious of their post-baby figures, because it's something Meghan really struggled with. There's no shame in that. I'm just giving you guys a basic observation. And I think because Meghan Markle is such a narcissist, she would not gain a bunch of weight just to be unable to lose it in order to sell a pregnancy. Twice. Not just once, but twice. Because she was still quite big, I thought, in September after she had given birth to Lilibet. It took her, I think, even longer to lose the weight with Lilibet. She looks still quite puffy and quite big in New York City. Guys, I cannot shame anybody. I'm just making an observation. I feel like I look terrible right now. So no shame in there at all. Just trying to explain some of this because I think it's a very important distinction to make. And I share all this because Harry obviously has always dealt with these rumors that James Hewitt is his father. James Hewitt is a redhead, Harry's a redhead, ergo he must be James Hewitt's son. And even though Diana definitely did have an affair, definitely did perhaps because she had an affair contribute to Harry being connected with James Hewitt, it's something that definitely hurt him. I believe he mentioned it in his memoir. And because it's hurt him, I mean, I do somewhat feel sorry for him. Yet at the same time, I'm also thinking to myself of, you let your wife play games with the media. You let your wife perhaps pat her bump, stick out her stomach when she probably shouldn't have and should have tried to act more like a normal person. And then you two lied. You lied to the British public. You didn't tell them when Meghan Markle gave birth. You told them she was in labor after she had already given birth. And because of that, the conspiracy rumors that were already circulating at the time just erupted into flames and have never been able to put out. And that is on you, Harry. The greatest hypocrisy here is that you are perpetuating the hurt you experienced onto your own children because you played games, because you weren't truthful. Why did Meghan insist on keeping her whole medical team secret? It's just because she wanted to play a game with the media, wanted to hold something over them. Why? What purpose did that have? Did that help your guys' lives any? Did it help your children's life any? No. It clearly has not. You didn't want to tell us what hospital. Did it really matter? Has that helped you not to tell us what hospital it was at? Did it help you to lie that she was in labor when she had already given birth? You humiliated the media. You gave the public deliberately false information. There's no excuse for that. And because of those actions, you have fanned the flames of people thinking that your children were born of a surrogate. And that is on Harry. That is the greatest hypocrisy. When I see these 2 kids, I feel sorry for them. I think their parents' marriage is probably not in a great place. There's a lot of obviously tension around this crumbling business empire that they have. But the biggest thing here is that I feel sorry for these kids because their parents have been so bad with the media that for the rest of their lives that they'll have questions over their legitimacy, just like their father. And you know who is responsible for that? Why, it's their father and their mother, Prince Harry and Meghan Markle. So when they trot out their kids, I just feel sorry for them. And I wish them the best. I hope they grow up in a great, loving environment. But at the same time, I think Harry and Meghan live in this den of hypocrisy. And as time goes on, it becomes more and more difficult to figure out truth from fiction. And I think it's only been detrimental to the family. So guys, let me know what you think of this video. Let me know what you think of the pictures of Harry and Meghan and Archie and Lilibet. Don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already. And thank you so much for watching. I look forward to seeing you again soon. Bye.